up on Lawmakers. Senator Preston Smith introduces legislation he hopes will help save the lives of teen drivers. Clean water advocates announce a bill that would impose fees on industrial and public-owned facilities that pollute Georgia's water supply. And Education Go Get It. The largest education partnership in history is launched in Georgia. Those stories and more are next.
From Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Friday, February 18th. Here are your anchors, Gerald Bryant and Nwandi Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. Also in tonight's broadcast, Speaker of the House Glenn Richardson talks about ethics reform and redistricting efforts.
And we'll celebrate Arbor Day with Governor Sonny Perdue, but our top story tonight, in an effort to help save the lives of Georgia's teen drivers. Legislation introduced today aims to bring driver's education courses back into every Georgia high school. The legislation creates a public-private partnership which would fund electronic driving simulators and other materials that would give students hands-on training and experience. Lawmakers Chris Knight joins us from the Capitol with more on Senate Bill 226. Chris.
Gerald, the high cost of operating driver's education courses has forced many Georgia high schools to do away with the program. But Senator Preston Smith says he's found a way to bring the program back to Georgia's schools. 123 high school graduation robes draped across 123 empty chairs. Each robe represents a Georgia teenager who lost his or her life in a car accident in 2003. High school senior Gretchen Watts stands before the empty chairs, thankful one does not represent her.
I've lost people in car accidents. I've lost a few people in car accidents, and I just think about how many people have died, and probably most of it was inexperience.
How long can we afford to sit idly by while we watch the future of our state buried every single day?
Senator Preston Smith introduced legislation he hopes will help save lives.
Well, the goal of the legislation is to find a way to create funding for the schools to have driver's education in every high school in Georgia. We're very sensitive to the fact that we do not want to create an unfunded mandate, so we've come up with a way to partner private dollars with public money raised from criminal citations, DUI and other traffic violations, to raise the money to put these driving programs in the schools.
The legislation is called Joshua's Law, named in honor of high school student Joshua Brown, who died in a car accident 2 years ago.
This thing will stop other parents from feeling the pain that we endure every day.
46 senators have signed on to Senate Bill 226. The legislation would require every Georgia high school student to complete a driver education course in order to get their license at the age of 16. If a student does not complete a course, that teenager would have to wait another year to get his or her license. Reporting from the Capitol, I'm Chris Knight for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, Chris.
In other news, House Speaker Glenn Richardson says new congressional maps will be approved this session, but not necessarily within the time House Republicans forecasted a week ago. Speaker Richardson was asked about reapportionment at a press briefing earlier today.
I think the answer is yes, and that's why I hedge a little bit on that day 30. Remember, day 30 is an artificial deadline that the House and Senate agreed to strive to get bills crossed over. It's certainly not a legal deadline, constitutional deadline, and frankly, the real deadline is 37, because all it's got to do is be in the other body for 3 days. So technically we've got 7 extra days if we needed them, so that we're not putting ourselves up against some artificial deadline that we have to comply with.
The Speaker said his legislative priorities also include the '06 budget, abortion reforms, faith-based funding, and ethics, although he said he does not agree with all aspects of House Bill 48.
I think the meal and gift ban that is unreasonable. Don't intend to support that. And I just think that ignores how business is done in the real world, and the political business is the same. And so I don't support putting the ban out there. Similarly, as you know, I have attended sporting events. I'm trying to think. I attended some event recently, and I saw the price of the ticket, and it was some sporting event, that the Falcons game. I got invited to go there. That would have been a violation of the gift ban.
Speaker Richardson also opposes a ban on candidate-to-candidate campaign fund transfers and mandatory disclosure of lobbyist fees. Representative Wendell, Willard, and others have filed legislation that they hope will help clean up Georgia's waterways. He joined other lawmakers as well as environmental advocates to make that announcement today. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman joins us with more. Jesse.
Thank you, Wendy. Georgia's waterways are protected by federal clean water standards, but the state doesn't have any real means of enforcing the standards. House Bill 550, which is called the Georgia Water Quality Control Act, would install fees for corporate polluters. Representative Willard says water quality is a priority of his. He heads a group of 14 sponsors of the Water Quality Protection Bill that has bipartisan support.
The purpose of it is to give the department a resource it doesn't have now, which is funding for monitoring and inspection of those users who have the discharge permits.
This will allow EPD hopefully to have some funding available to enforce the regulations that we need enforced right now to protect our rivers and streams here in Georgia.
Willard added that it is important for the fees garnered from the polluters to be used for regulation.
We do have a unique provision in the bill, and that is the private holders of the permits, private industry, if the money is not used by the state for the purpose of which it is intended, they will be granted a tax credit on that money that they paid for the permit the previous year. As to the local governments, if they're not provided the inspections and the purpose of which the money was to be used, they are to get back a grant from the state of that money.
Now, the money would be collected for the pollution violation via fees for usage permits. According to the bill, the fees would adjust to the amount of pollution, but would not exceed $12,000 for each facility. Reporting from the Capitol, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thanks so much, Jesse.
And other news with identity theft much in the news these days. Senator Bill Hamrick is among legislators working on a related bill. The legislation would make it mandatory for companies to notify customers when the company suspects personal information has been stolen. Alpharetta-based ChoicePoint Incorporated this week told its customers that a fraud ring may have accessed their personal data. Senator Hamrick says legislators are examining a California law that requires companies to notify customers of security breaches. For more information on the problem of identity theft, we invite you to watch Georgia Business Report immediately following Lawmakers.
House Bill 497, which would require a student's body mass index, or BMI, to be included on their report card, is expected to be withdrawn from consideration. Representative Stephanie Stuckey-Benfield, the bill sponsor, says that public response to the legislation has caused her to reconsider the bill.
I've already indicated to the chairs of the subcommittee and of the committee that I do not intend to pursue the bill. I've gotten a lot of concerns that are valid from constituents and people who are they're very concerned about any stigma that might be attached to that, especially kids who are overweight, may have anorexia, bulimia, or other eating disorders. So I'm definitely sensitive to that and have decided to still pursue the issue of obesity because it is a real concern, but not with this bill. Obesity is a real problem in our state. We are seeing children with adult diseases, and we have got to address this, and I am open to input. I hope it's clear that I'm open to input since I have withdrawn the effort on this particular bill. So I hope that folks who are concerned about this issue will join me in a dialogue, and let's work together and try to move forward on this.
Although she has decided not to pursue the BMI measure, Representative Benfield says she will continue to fight childhood obesity. Her plans include seeking a ban on soda vending machines in schools and holding a summit on obesity later this summer.
A new statewide program that focuses on getting more Georgians to graduate from high school and attend college kicked off today at the Capitol Education Center. The program, called Education Go Get It, is the largest public-private educational partnership in Georgia history. David Zelski joins us from the Capitol with the details. David.
Well, thanks, Gerald. Georgia's current high school graduation rate hovers around 64%, and only 28% of the state's 18 to 24-year-old group enroll into college. State School Superintendent Kathy Cox and other state educational leaders believe Education Go Get It may be the way to improve those statistics. Education Go Get It, or GO for short, begins with a grassroots outreach program, getting the word out. Thank you very much. And then onto a multimedia engagement campaign.
If we're going to be serious about kids getting a high school diploma and going on, it has to be more than just educators talking about it.
So if we just made that dropout rate smaller by a little over 3% a year, by the year 2016, we have all ninth graders on a certain path to graduation. That's what we're looking to do. Incremental movements setting the students on the way to graduation.
There are 263,000 jobs that our State Department of Economic Development and our State Department of Labor have generated. But if we don't have 2- and 4-year and graduate school people, then we can't fill them, which means as a state we begin to fail instead of grow.
Now, someone who many of today's speakers gave credit for the education go-get-it idea was the University System of Georgia Chancellor Thomas Meredith. And Gerald, I understand you had a chance to talk with the Chancellor this afternoon about the program.
Well, that's right, David, but the Chancellor was pretty modest about taking credit for go-get-it.
Well, I don't want to take all the credit. We've got a lot of partners in this thing, and everybody's in there equally. But it was just an idea of, if you just look at the pure economic impact on the state of Georgia of losing so many young people before they graduate from high school, something had to be done. You know, we ranked 48th in the percent of our 18 to 24-year-olds who are in any kind of post-secondary education, and that's because not many people are graduating from high school. So we're having to import workers. So something had to be done. We heard about a program in Texas, a little bit of something in North Carolina, a little bit of something, and so we started piecing all those things together. What might work in Georgia? When I was a president in Kentucky, we ran a little program just for our institution. And I remember we pass out these buttons and say, you got to go to college. And 3 years after, some student was in one of those audiences as a 6th grader. He came up to me at a basketball game, tugged on my shirt and said, remember me? And I said, well, of course, you know. And he said, I'm going to college. And he had that button on. So there's something about positive reinforcement that just works. And we've got to change the culture in this state about high school diplomas and then moving on to something post-secondary education.
Which is a big task when you talk about changing a culture. There have been a lot of dropout programs in a lot of states for a long time.
Yes.
What makes this one distinctive and gives you hope that it will have a real impact?
The partnership, first of all. All the important players are joining and will be joining so that everyone's committed to one goal instead of just one agency taking something on or one organization. Here's this massive partnership working together. When you couple that into the fact that this, you know, all politics are local, which we all know, this program has to move down to the local level, community by community across this state. And when a community recognizes the impact on their future by such a high dropout rate, then we get that community involved with community leaders, sustainable leaders. Then you go all the way from your Chamber of Commerce, your economic development folks, to your churches, to your civic clubs, to your schools, to the parents, building partnerships to say, we're going to change the culture of our town. We're not going to do this anymore.
Has this been something of a culture shift? Because in my generation, which has been quite a while ago, it was pretty much expected by our parents that you would at least go on and complete high school because so many of them didn't have that opportunity. Has there been a cultural shift where more people think, well, it's still a sustainable life. There are indeed jobs out there for people without a degree?
Well, we've had a hard time getting a handle on that, Gerald. Why on earth would this happen? Why would this shift occur? We have so many students coming to us now that are not prepared to enter that 1st grade. And when that happens, then by 3rd grade they don't read well, and we know when they don't read well by 3rd grade, then a cascading steps of failure start to occur. So what's happened, we're not quite sure, and what we've decided to do is not spend a lot of time trying to figure out what happened, but now make a difference in changing it to something positive.
You mentioned during the presentation a rather startling statistic, and I'm not sure at how the folks arrived at this, but that the annual loss to the state of Georgia in dollars by not having more people graduate is over $17 billion, which is about the amount of the state budget.
Exactly. And when you put it in economic terms like that, people start to understand what you're talking about. And it ranges all the way from lost wages, from a high school dropout to what they could have earned as a high school graduate, to welfare payments. The list goes on. We had a group at Georgia Southern that put this study together, and we were just startled by it when the data came back.
One of the elements is mentoring. You're going to have these go centers around the states that might be in schools, they might be in public libraries. If someone is interested and thinks that they are qualified to be a mentor in one of these programs, how do they go about doing it?
Well, the first thing, that information will be in every school. So contact your school and say, I'd like to be a Go mentor. How do I do that? Should be someone there. If that doesn't bear fruit for you, then simply call the Board of Regents office and we'll put you in contact through our Go office in our office. we'll put you in contact with the exact way to get that accomplished.
Okay, if you don't have any more comments about the GO thing, I would like to ask you a couple of other questions about how things are going in the university system. In previous visits, you had expressed some concern that because of budget restrictions and a bad economy, that Georgia was in danger of losing some of the great strides they had made in college and universities. How are things going now in the budget situation, and what shape is the university system in?
Well, as you know, the governor was very generous in recommending about an 8.3% increase for us this time, and that's going to be very helpful. We've lost $378 million in all the budget reductions and that have occurred. But what we've been doing in the meantime is shifting dollars. We have stopped doing all kinds of things in the university system. Services we've provided, continuing ed things that we've been doing all along. We've been shutting those down or making them self-sufficient and moving those dollars into classrooms. So in some way, it's forced us to do some things that we should have been doing probably already. But we now have the dollars kind of restructured, if you will, within the system to focus on our core values and what we're all about. So we've been able to sustain, to a certain degree, the quality that we had, and even enhanced in some areas, but we've had to move to far more dependence on part-time faculty than we've ever had to do before. So now part of my emphasis for this coming year is to use dollars and shift back now to more full-time faculty.
What about capital projects? Anything new in that area?
Capital projects, we're behind schedule because we determined, as you remember, 2 years ago with the study we had made, we're going to need 20 million square feet to meet the needs of the coming students. But we have 4 projects recommended this time, and we had a good 4 or 5 last year. So we're moving forward. What you're going to see now more and more is the private side helping us. It's public-private partnerships. We probably have spent over several $1 billion worth of construction projects in the last few years just from private dollars without state help. So it's all a partnership coming together.
Chancellor, as always, you're a very welcome guest on Lawmakers. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Jared.
The House agreed today that counties should not exceed state law to restrict seed and fertilizer use. Rural legislators debated the merits of Senate Bill 87. First, Representative Tom McCall.
Out in California, a county out there has prevented farmers in that particular county from using biotech seeds. It's one of the stupidest things I ever heard of, but anyway they did, and all we're doing is preventing that from happening in Georgia.
I am a farmer, and years ago in the Ag Committee we tried to strengthen our seed laws in the state of Georgia. We were unable to do so because of the power, I guess, that the seed companies had. Now, I understand that there's a problem in California with one seed out there, but my concern is producers of agriculture spend hundreds of thousands of dollars per year in buying seeds and in buying fertilizer, and your next bill will be about fertilizer there. And we need to have some kind of way to have check on these people in the event that something goes wrong.
SB 87 passed by a vote of 117 to 36 and goes to the governor's office. Senate Bill 88 covering fertilizer passed as well. That was 130 to 27. It also awaits the governor's signature. A measure vetoed by Governor Sonny Perdue last year received House approval today. Senate Bill 266 would allow the records of chiropractors disciplined for minor infractions to have their records cleared. Representative Joe Wilkinson suggested that the House straighten up and approve the bill.
Also, it allows these chiropractors to participate in managed care programs. Mr. Speaker, it's very straightforward. It is a chiropractic bill. It is a Friday. So I would ask you to show real backbone and bend over backwards to help please the chiropractors of the state of Georgia. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
You didn't have to pay any extra for the comedy, so you can't boo.
And House Speaker Glenn Richardson wrapped up the week's business with a riddle.
What do these members have in common? Jim Cole, Chuck Sims, Matt Crawford, and Tom Bordeaux. Nothing. Birthdays, that's right. Nothing or birthdays. Both are correct. Birthdays this weekend, so tell all those happy birthday. Why don't y'all have a joint party together and make it bipartisan and whatever?
Well, birthdays aside, this was the busiest week at the Capitol since the session began, with action on everything from tort reform to massage therapy. Here's a look at some of our top stories of the week. On Monday, the Senate agreed to House changes to SB 3, the tort reform bill. It caps pain and suffering damages in medical malpractice cases and makes it more difficult to sue emergency rooms unless you can prove gross negligence.
We made a decision for policy reasons to make an exception in the emergency care area because it's so important to provide emergency care to our citizens in Georgia.
What we've done is we've really said to the people of Georgia, if something happens to you in an emergency room as a result of medical malpractice, you may not be able to recover even the costs of your medical treatment or lost wages.
A coalition led by the AARP was at the Capitol to oppose the tort reform measure. Also on Monday, a House committee passed a bill to let residents of Sandy Springs vote on incorporation. On Tuesday, Senate Republican leaders unveiled maps redrawing Georgia's congressional district lines.
They're not drawn for any specific person. They're drawn to give fair and equal representation to all the people that live in this state.
We've had an election. Republicans have a majority. So what else do they want?
And SB 5 died on Tuesday, complete with forensic evidence of the bill's demise. Sponsor Senator Dan Moody said he could no longer fight bad publicity that portrayed the economic development bill as a government attempt to seize private property.
With that perception problem, it's something that we just couldn't fight any longer, and it was time to really lay the Senate Bill 5 to rest.
Also on Tuesday, the Senate Economic Development Committee passed House Bill 218, which would allow state and local governments to hold confidential meetings with prospective businesses, something currently banned by state law. Wednesday found Governor Sonny Perdue visiting an Atlanta hospital to sign the tort reform bill.
Becomes law upon the signature of the governor, and Senate Bill 3 is now law in Georgia.
Also on Wednesday, Senator Casey Cagle couldn't get the votes needed to pass his resolution giving local school boards more leeway in using local sales tax money. That measure is now on the table. Also on Wednesday, the Senate did pass a bill taking interstate road projects out of the formula determining where federal road money goes. Thursday, the Senate passed its version of the $16.5 billion supplemental budget.
This budget is lean and clean and is focused on education and children.
We're reaching an all-time high in debt and an all-time low in reserve funds.
House and Senate conferees will meet to work out the differences in the mid-year spending plan. Also on Thursday, Governor Perdue's virtual school legislation passed the House. The bill allows Georgia high school students to take advanced courses online. The House altered Senate Bill 33, so it returns to the Senate. And this week, the Senate passed a massage therapist licensing bill that didn't please everyone.
Chair recognizes Senator 42nd.
President, would it not be appropriate to table the massage bill because it rubs at least one senator the wrong way?
Clearly one senator has been rubbed the wrong way.
And that's what happened this week in the Georgia General Assembly.
A candlelight vigil for uninsured children was held at Grady Hospital last night. Those in attendance hope to encourage lawmakers to support children's health care programs. Sean Yancey reports.
There are nearly 300,000 children in Georgia who do not have health insurance. Advocacy groups and lawmakers are concerned with the state's low rankings.
Because of the high number of uninsured that we have in Georgia, including the hundreds of thousands of children, Georgia has now fallen to 45th on the United Health Foundation state health ranking. 45th. As the 10th largest state in this nation, shouldn't we be in the top 10 categories in that measurement and every other category that impacts our children? Don't you think so?
Advocacy groups plan to influence lawmakers on children's health care.
We're trying to influence the budget process, so as we speak under that gold dome, legislators are talking about cuts to prenatal care, cuts to dental service, increased premiums for peach care, really things that would be pretty dramatic. So we're hoping that we can influence legislators and help them understand how important peach care is and how important providing health insurance for all children is to the future of our state.
Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor was on hand and voiced his concern on how budget cuts could affect the Peach Care program, which insures Georgia children.
That program has been cut and cut and cut
You have heard that explained tonight. It is very, very sad what is happening.
Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Sean Yancey.
In other news, Arbor Day got off to an early start yesterday as Governor Sonny Perdue and the Georgia Forestry Commission planted a tree on the Capitol grounds to commemorate the event. Lawmakers' Angela Vondrasek has more.
Those who attended the event braved the wind to celebrate Arbor Day with the governor and the Capitol's newest addition, a summer red maple.
While most holidays are about celebrating some event that happened in the past, Arbor Day is about taking action for the future, and that's a great thing. Every tree planted by a Georgian on Arbor Day helps to clean the air, to beautify our neighborhoods and communities, provide homes for wildlife, conserve energy, prevent soil erosion, just among a few things. So as we celebrate Arbor Day today, I want to encourage all of our Georgia parents to help their children. There could be nothing more meaningful, leaving a legacy around your home. Take your children out and plant a tree.
Along with the tree planting, there were also several awards presented. Georgia's new Tree City USA communities were recognized, along with the winner of the state's Arbor Day poster contest, Raul Delgado. Raul's poster will now compete with other states' winners in the national competition. The maple that was planted here today will be in good company. The Capitol lawn is home to a variety of Georgia's native trees.
A lot of the other trees are older trees, got several different types of oak trees, got some magnolia trees. The good thing that we're doing here is we're getting ready by planting trees now. We're preparing for the loss of those older trees in the future. The oak trees that we've got planted around the Capitol grounds have been here for, they may have been here for 70 or 80 years in some cases. And trees are just like people, they don't live forever. So you've got to prepare for their loss by planting new trees, and that's one thing the governor did today.
Though the Capitol's trees are currently bare, come spring, there will be one more shady spot on the lawn. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Angela Vondrasek.
Well, lawmakers will not be broadcast Monday evening because the Georgia General Assembly will not be in session. Lawmakers will return with all the latest from under the Gold Dome Tuesday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. If you missed any part of this broadcast, tune in when Lawmakers is rebroadcast Monday morning at 5:30 a.m. on GPB. Just a reminder for those of you with access to the Internet, you can watch Lawmakers online. Lawmakers is streamed live and then archived on our website every night that we're on the air. Be sure to tune in Sunday at 1 p.m. for Joseph Lowry, a Conversation. That Georgia Public Broadcasting exclusive airs Sunday at 1 p.m., Monday the 20th at 7 p.m., and Wednesday the 23rd at 7:30. And now we want you to stay tuned for Georgia Business Report. Identity theft is in the news this week because a Georgia company's records were tapped. We'll hear what the industry has to say about that. Georgia Business Report is coming up next here on GPB.
And that is our broadcast for this, the 21st legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Gerald Bryant.
And I'm Wandy Lawson. For all of us here at Lawmakers, good night.
Have a good weekend.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.